Welcome back to the Show Me Show podcast for episode 59. Shout out D'Amico Ryans, I believe, episode 59. Today we have the draft, the pre-draft show, which is basically going to be us winging it off of our draft knowledge, off of our big board knowledge, and seeing how that goes. We also have some breaking news to start off the show that broke a few hours ago, which we thought would actually break after the draft, but here we are, Monday, April 24th, a few days before the draft, and here it is. So, yeah, and that's basically going to be the show, is just pure draft talk. Luke alluded to this last weekend when he talked about we're going to have just a strictly draft show. And so, yeah, we've got this is being recorded before Game 4 of the Lakers. So we have, I'm obviously in my Laker gear. Check out the Twitter for an exclusive image of Laker Cam. And we also have Hat Guy Luke repping.
Disgusting.
Hat Guy Luke repping the Green Bay hat. He broke that one out of the I don't even know where he pulled that one from, to be honest. I haven't seen that hat before. Okay.
I don't wear it very often. It has traveled out of the country before. It went to Iceland with me 4 years ago, but it hasn't seen much action since I got jerseys, because mostly I just wear jerseys on game day now instead of the hat. So, but all the jerseys I have now, all the players are gone, so I have to wear the hat. It's my only choice. So, you want to talk about that? Start off here. Speaking of the no players gone, so. Some big draft news. Aaron Rodgers is now a New York Jet, and this is something that we've all anticipated for a few months now, I think. No, about a month. It's been a little over a month that we've known this. It's just a matter of when is the trade going to be official and what are the Packers going to get in return. And that happened today. I don't know. I guess I've kind of had time to cope with it. That is the beauty of Aaron Rodgers just being a troll, is that he let us know ahead of time, like, hey, I'm going to play for the Jets. So the Packers fans got it all out of the way. And, of course, that was the day before Arizona lost, so it was like a double whammy. But now I'm kind of fine with it. I'm looking at the trade. This was the trade. Let's just go to the image that we have here. Aaron Rodgers officially traded from the Packers to the Jets. The Packers receive this year's pick number 13, the first-round pick number 42, the second-round pick, and pick number 207, the fourth-round pick. And then next year we get a 2024 second-round pick that has the chance to become a first-round pick if Rodgers plays 65% of the snaps, which unless he suffers a season-ending injury, that will happen. And then the Jets receive Aaron Rodgers, obviously, pick 15 this year, which is our first-round pick, so we just swap first-round picks, and pick 170, which I do believe is a fifth-round pick, I believe.
32, 64, 96, 100.
That might be a sixth-round pick, actually.
100. Oh, man. I guess we can't do math.
128. 128 is 4.
32 would be 160. Right? 128 plus 32, 160.
So it's a sixth-round pick then.
All right, yeah. Well, actually, I don't know that for sure.
The Dolphins.
There is always like random extra picks in the third and fourth round.
Oh, because the black coach rule. That's right.
Yeah.
The Texans always take advantage of that.
Yep.
And Mike Tomlin. Shout out to him, too. One of the long-standing ones. So, yeah, that was the trade compensation. I think that's probably the most that we can get for a 39-year-old quarterback that is a drug addict and hates the media. So, trading him to a New York team, that's about as good as we're going to get. So, we move up 2 spots in the draft this year. Whatever. We get a second-round pick, a high second-round pick, pick number 42. It's a solid pick. And then we also get a pick next year, which most likely will be a first round unless he gets hurt. So that's pretty epic too. This will be 2 out of 3 years. We will have 2 first-round picks. And this year we have pick 13. So this is 3 good years of drafting that we have set up for us. So that's a very good thing. That's something that the Packers never have. I do believe this is the highest the Packers will be drafting in my lifetime. They had pick number 14 a few years ago whenever they were kind of bad, when Rodgers broke his collarbone and stuff. But pick 13 is now officially the highest. So that's kind of sick. That's kind of cool to see that. And I don't think this is where the Packers will end up drafting. I think that they have their sights set on a higher pick. And I'm thinking maybe top 10. I don't know who we're going to draft, but I think we're going to draft probably someone a little bit surprising, and I think we're going to have to trade up to get him. Yeah, that's my take on it. But it's exciting because now we officially move on to a new quarterback, which it is kind of bittersweet, but it has been teased for the last few years. Like this ending has been teased. I think it was 2 years ago on draft day, so almost 2 years ago to the date that Aaron Rodgers officially requested the trade. And it just set off a saga of unbelievable events after that and created drama in every single offseason. So I do love Aaron Rodgers. He is the reason I got into, became a Packers fan, became a football fan, why I fell in love with watching the NFL. So I do give him a shout out for that. And he will probably always be my favorite player of all time. But it was just time to move on. But the only really bad thing that I get from this is that I want to be able to root for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets next year. But the better they do, the worse pick we get. Like the worse they do, the better we get, and the better pick we get in the draft from them. So that is kind of like what do I do? But I probably will still end up rooting for their success just because I don't hate the Jets and I really like Aaron Rodgers. So it would be cool to see him go and do things with another team. I know a lot of Bears fans, particularly Big Cat, think it would be hilarious if he went and won a Super Bowl with the Jets. But I think that would be cool, personally.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's anytime there's a big change in the NFL, it's always fun, especially when it revolves around the quarterback position. I mean, I remember how weird it was seeing Tom Brady in a Tampa Bay jersey for the first time. And that was really weird, and he still had the same number. Here we have the double whammy. We have Rodgers going to New York, just a completely different shade of green, and he's also changing his number. One thing I'll point out is that, New York is the land of shooting your own shot, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't like shots. So we'll see how that goes. But he doesn't have he didn't have as many weapons, it felt like, obviously here at the end with Green Bay, but he is walking into a situation where they have a bunch of young playmakers in New York, and I think they're actually going to try and add some more this draft season because, one, they're getting Rodgers, and two, the defense was stout next year. Now, they got to make sure that the defense stays stout, so they'll do what they can, but let's just take a look at some of the pieces around him here, Luke. I mean, he'll have Lazard, obviously, is coming with him. But we also have, guys like Michael Carter, Breece Hall, Michael Carter struggled last year. Breece Hall excelled, but was hurt. But dude,
don't have James Robinson too?
Yeah, but he barely even played, which was wild. So
I think he was hurt.
And then also, obviously, Elijah Moore left and went to the Brownies. Oh man, I just had a flashback to Brownie the Elf game. But anyway, he went to the Browns. Who else do they have? Oh, Garrett Wilson, who I think won Rookie of the Year. Yeah, they had the jet sweep last year. Sauce Gardner, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Garrett Wilson, Offensive Rookie of the Year. They have some key pieces on the offensive line. Shout out Connor McGovern, Mizzou legend. He re-signed today with the Jets. And they also have Mekhi Becton. He'll be coming back next year as well. So
as long as he doesn't get hurt in spring or in preseason again, like he usually does.
Exactly.
The annual tradition.
Everybody. I feel like I'm missing a wide receiver.
It doesn't. It doesn't get for Mekhi Becton gets hurt like every preseason.
Oh yeah, but anybody can get hurt.
He never plays
off season.
Well, yeah, but especially
shit. I mean, who are we missing? Braxton Berrios left. I'm trying to think of his receiver weapons he'll have next year. It's kind of just Garrett Wilson. Oh no, Odell's a Raven. He's a Ratbird.
Who was the other guy he said he wanted? Odell and who else? I don't remember, but
I don't remember either.
Basically, the Packers receiving core, but they do have a better defense. So, and I guess probably the same offensive line. The Packers' offensive line hasn't been bad really the last few years.
Jets' offensive line has been bad the last few years.
Exactly.
I will state that. Make it clear. They have been bad lately. So, yeah. But yeah, pretty young. So he'll definitely be an older guy there. Kind of how it was in Green Bay, though, too, except they had some older receivers like Cobb and Lazard was becoming a vet. But I guess the running back,
he wasn't old, though.
Yeah. But Aaron will definitely be an old soul in that Jet locker room. I still can't believe that was his favorite destination that he wanted to go to. I think he's going to hate New York, like bad. I'm still shocked by that. He's definitely, there's no way he's living in like lower Manhattan. I just can't see it. He has got to be living in somewhere like
he's a New Jersey guy.
New Jersey, Hoboken, or something like that, or just on the outskirts. Well, there's just no way.
MetLife Stadium and the Jets practice facility is in New Jersey.
Yes, I know.
So he doesn't have to live in the city. That would be stupid to live in the city. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
in East Rutherford.
When you're rich, you want to move to Manhattan because it's sick. But not as a football player, I don't think. So, especially not Aaron Rodgers.
Just get yourself a nice Jersey Shore mansion or something.
Yeah, that would be sick too for him. So, yeah, maybe that's what he'll do.
And then you can just bring in women, and you can just bring in all your friends to do weird drugs, just on the off nights, and
he will like
awesome.
that. He will like that part of New York. There are lots of weird and different drugs in New York's, and New Jersey too. But I mean, they all stem right out of New York, I would assume, and multiple different ways to do weird drugs stemming out of New York. So I'm sure he will like that part of it. So could help.
I agree. That's probably
bring
a good
them
part.
a ring, just like Namath. So
I'm very interested to see the correlation and the impact that the New York media has on Aaron Rodgers, because we all know the New York media curse and how serious they can be sometimes. And just how they tend to focus on the negative more than the positive. Like if a player is playing bad on the Yankees or the Jets or the Knicks, those are the big three teams. But all the teams in New York really suffer from this, where if you have a player that messes up a lot, especially a young player, it can really just derail their career and their confidence. We saw that with Joey Gallo of the Yankees. Zach Wilson probably suffered from that a little bit, although he probably wasn't very good to begin with. But those are just two that I can focus at. The media has just pretty much destroyed their confidence and stuff. I'm interested to see what Aaron Rodgers has to do about that, because he will be criticized whenever he does mess up. Because especially in the New York market, a guy like Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be a target. But I honestly think he's just going to have fun with it. I think he's just going to be a troll like he always is. He's going to give some wild answers. He's going to get very mad, and he's going to be visibly mad, and it's going to be funny. So I can't wait to see some of the post-game press conferences, especially like if they lose week 1 and he has like 2 interceptions or something. That press conference is going to be it's going to be a must-watch to say the least. So, but as far as the Packers, so the Jets are obviously going all in for the next year or two. Like they want a Super Bowl in the next year or two. And the Packers, on the other hand, I honestly think obviously a Super Bowl would be nice. That's what everyone wants. But this is more of a building year. Like, we want to see improvement from Jordan Love. We want to find out that Jordan Love is the guy. We traded up in whatever year that was, 2019, for him to draft in first round. He's been training behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 seasons. And he even said mid-season last year that if he wasn't the starter coming into this year, that he would request a trade. So I think that might have been a big reason why Green Bay probably wanted to part ways with Rodgers, is because they wanted to go with Love. But this is a must. It's a development year for Love. It's a development year for some of these young receivers. The defense is kind of just solid. I think as long as we make the playoffs, maybe winning the division would be nice. And that's about all you can ask for this Packers team. Maybe winning in Wild Card weekend. The Packers are one of very few teams that have never played on Super Wild Card weekend. So maybe winning that, getting to the division series. I'll be happy with that as a Packers fan this year. Jordan Love shows flashes of being him, and then we don't have to worry about a quarterback for a long time. So, yeah, that's about it for the Packers. You want to get into the draft recap, or do you have anything more about Rodgers?
Yeah, I think one last note that I had was me and you we're actually kind of back inside of the same situation. Last year, Steelers were so goddamn boring to watch. But this year is supposed to be like kind of a see how far we can get kind of year with our second-year quarterback, Kenny Pickett. And you're going to see how far you can get with Jordan Love. Both teams have a capability of making the playoffs. I would say that the Packers have a better shot than the Steelers, because Packers division is a little bit more simplistic than the Steelers division, if you ask me.
Yeah,
even though at the North, don't get me wrong,
have the Lions
the
and the Bears.
NFC North is getting heaps better, because you're right. Dan Campbell's fighting.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
the two teams that I just named didn't even make the playoffs last year. One of them was literally the worst team in the NFL. Their GM is just a genius, and I hate it. But he's got the Chiefs syndrome, so that might be kind of a good jumping point with the Bears, because they did have the number 1 overall pick, and we talked about this on a lot of episodes back. But they did trade the number 1 pick to the Panthers. What's the move here for the Panthers? What are we thinking? I think QB is the consensus.
I think this one is actually kind of like a few years ago. Kyler Murray, we all knew he was coming off the board first. And then the year before that, we all knew Baker Mayfield was coming off the board first. I think everybody kind of knows that Bryce Young
after it's Trevor Lawrence.
Yes, exactly. Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence. Everybody knows Bryce Young is coming off the board first. I think they're committed to Bryce Young, especially over C.J. Stroud. And in fact, I don't think they were actually even close to C.J. Stroud as much as maybe Anthony Richardson, as close, as weird as that sounds. So I think Bryce Young, number 1, you lock it in, Luke. And then after that, Luke, all hell breaks loose. And I mean all hell breaks loose. We have the Texans, who are in lingo and maybe all kinds of smoke screens on whether or not they're going to take a quarterback or not. Because we have this big glaring connection between D'Amico Ryans and Will Anderson. Both played at Alabama with Nick Saban. Both are stud linebackers. And even though Will Anderson is not your typical stand-up rush defensive end that get paid the big bucks these days, like T.J. Watt and company, those types of guys. So he's still a playmaker. I mean, he's still had crazy seasons at Alabama.
He gives off Texans vibes. I don't know what that means. I could just picture him in a Texans uniform, though. Like that navy and that red. I could just totally see Will Anderson there and just kind of following in the steps of Jadeveon Clowney, the Texans do like their big guys in the first round. We'll say that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, I can't
honestly,
think of
he might have just as kind of a mid-ish good career as Clowney. I mean, Clowney wasn't exactly, a Hall of Fame pick by any means. So, and Will Anderson, he has great potential, but yeah, but he could also have like a Clowney-like career, which is still millions and millions of dollars, but maybe not that Hall of Fame type. Was definitely a college football Hall of Famer, probably. So we'll see about that maybe in 20, 25 years. But and then, right after them is the Cardinals, and this is probably where things are really going to shake up, because I think the Texans are going to pick somebody, whoever that is. They're going to use that pick. Cardinals are looking to trade down. They have been broadcasting to anybody that will listen that our pick is for sale. Come and get it. Give us your best offer. Put in bids. Do whatever. We're looking to kind of sell this pick because we're committed to Kyler Murray, so we don't need one of the top quarterbacks. If nobody's going to buy our pick, we are going to just take probably the best defender on the board that's available, whether that's Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, and continue to just try and build the defense for Arizona, because obviously there's no offensive lineman that's worth that type of pick. There's no playmaking wide receiver that's worth that type of pick, and they're not going to take Bijan Robinson with the third pick. So,
they're going to take a QB.
They're not taking a quarterback, and they're listing, this pick for, however much somebody's willing to trade it for them. It's either that or they're going to probably just take the best player on the board on defense, and, that, believe it or not, could be somebody like Tyree Wilson, who was just absolutely rocketed up boards over the past month, which is the stand-up edge rusher from Texas Tech. Or like I said, they could be looking at somebody like Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, the other two best players on the board in terms of defense. But like I said, this is where I think, like Luke, me, Luke, and a bunch of our buddies, draft party Thursday, this is where I think hell is going to break loose, Luke, is this pick. I think somebody is going to buy this pick. I
think it'll be at the draft.
Oh, yeah, me too. I think we're going to be sitting in our chairs waiting for 12 minutes for the pick to come in, just waiting and waiting.
And then Rodgers going to come on out.
And then he's going to announce that it's been traded, and then we're going to really kick up at our seats, and boom, then we're off. And then, Colts, I don't know, Luke, but I think the Colts might just take a quarterback, no matter what kind of chaos takes place.
Even if it's Richardson.
I think if Stroud hasn't been taken by pick 4, they're going to take him, which would be shocking because,
100%.
I think that the Texans should probably take C.J. Stroud because I'm an eye test guy with these top 2 quarterbacks. I like the top 2 quarterbacks a lot. Me and Luke have overemphasized that on this show. But if Stroud's not there, I think I might also just take Anthony Richardson and just say, screw it. Let's just see what happens. Otherwise, what do you do? Because you just have so many glaring needs.
Yeah.
What do you go with? You could look at Jalen Carter. If at 4, Will Anderson's still there, you probably take him too, maybe. But you also have guys like Shaq Leonard, so you don't really need that. So maybe you don't just take the best player, that's why I think it's just quarterback.
The Colts have built up their roster for the last 4 seasons to compete, and their only missing piece for the last 4 seasons, they've been trying to fill this piece forever since Andrew Luck retired, the quarterback. And they still have their offensive line took one of the weirdest collapses this year. They were one of the best, and they became one of the worst. But they still have the same guys that they had 2 years ago. I think they can bounce back very easily. You would like to address that maybe later on in the draft, maybe a second or third round pick, use it on offensive linemen. But I think it's quarterback here no matter what. And I think they might even take the Cardinals bid and trade up just one pick just to ensure they get Stroud. And so that another team doesn't jump in front of them and steal Stroud from them. I think if the Texans take a defensive player and pass on Stroud, I think the Colts are sitting there waiting in the chambers just to trade up one pick just to ensure that. I think they really like Stroud, and I really like Stroud too. Obviously, I'm a huge Bryce Young guy. I was on the tank for Bryce Young train earlier this year, but Stroud, his biggest knock is that he's an Ohio State quarterback, and they typically don't pan out. But I think he's a little different because Ohio State quarterbacks typically are usually dual threat. Would you agree with me on that? Like, I'm thinking back Terrell Pryor, JT Barrett, Cardale Jones. Those are all like dual threat guys. Justin Fields, dual threat. C.J. Stroud's a pocket passer. I mean, he can run when he wants to, but he is a true
we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that. He can move. He's kind of athletic, but he's like, no, I'm actually just going to sit in here and sling it. And that's why Ohio State.
That's why I said needs to.
Sick. So, yeah. One thing.
That's why I said needs to run because he doesn't want to.
Yeah. One thing that is interesting that could happen that I've seen a couple different guys predict. I'm looking at one here, actually, Chris Trapasso, predicting that the Cardinals and the Texans might trade picks to where trade not the second and the third, obviously, but the Texans trading their 12th pick to the Cardinals for the third, and I'm sure a bunch of other shit, obviously, to move up 9 slots back into the top 3. And I don't know which order they would do it, but take Stroud maybe at 2, or take Stroud at 3, or take Stroud at 3 and take Will Anderson at 2, or Will Anderson at 3, Stroud at 2, vice versa. Just trading up and taking that pick and then kind of settle in. And obviously they probably wouldn't be picking for a little bit because they just traded their second first-round pick. But Cardinals could have a lot to gain from that because there's still going to be guys that can make plays for their team by the time that they get to that 12th pick, whether they go offense or defense. So just another possibility. And that's why we said all hell is going to break loose once we get to the Cardinals pick.
Could be some wild things going on there.
Yeah.
But I expect them to probably do the wrong thing. Just based off what I've seen over the course of the last 2 seasons from the Cardinals, I would fully expect them to just do the wrong thing. So if I was a team looking for the number 3 pick, I would jump on this opportunity because I know that the odds are probably in my favor. But it's beside the point. I won't go on a huge Cardinals rant right now. The Colts,
shout out to their jerseys. Their new jerseys.
No, I'm
but
not.
Also not shout out.
Mid. And then the Colts. I think they want Stroud, and I think Stroud. I think if he goes to the Colts in Indianapolis, I think they win the division. I think they beat the Jags. I think they bounce back. Obviously, I don't know how Shane Steichen is going to be as a head coach, but I just love their roster. If Stroud goes there, I think Stroud's going to win Rookie of the Year if he does. It's a good spot to go for a rookie quarterback. It's a lot better than a spot like maybe the Panthers or the Texans.
Definitely better than the. Yeah, you're right. Better than both of them. I mean, I guess Cam Newton had pretty successful rookie season when he went there, but other than that, in terms of quarterbacks in Carolina Panther history, kind of like the Bears, just not a whole lot there if you take Cam Newton off the board. So, yeah.
If you take Cam Newton, like 2 seasons off the board.
Like me and Luke said, we're not, we don't have our own draft boards here, our own mock drafts. It's going to be crazy. Some crazy things to point out here, Luke, is that the Eagles have literally the 10th pick in the draft after going to the Super Bowl. I've seen lots of people somehow having Jalen Carter fall all the way to the Eagles, which would be insane. Another huge Georgia defensive player on that front seven, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. And then I've also seen Bijan Robinson to the Eagles. And Bijan Robinson to the Eagles would be pretty crazy too. And that's if they don't get Derrick Henry. I could see them really doing that. Because it's just like a luxury pick. You're like, okay, we're already kind of stacked on offense. We didn't really lose as much on offense as we did on defense. Let's just kind of overload again here and maybe take some of the running off of Jalen Hurts' back, even though we had 3 stud running backs last year too. Let's just grab another one.
But Sanders is gone, isn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't he leave?
He is. Yeah. Who is the Gainwell,
right?
Gainwell, Sanders.
Clement?
No.
Corey Clement?
We had Boston Scott.
Boston Scott.
Yeah. I wouldn't call him a stud.
I guess that's
a goal line stud. Goal line merchant. So that's interesting. The they're at 10, you know. Also, it's important to point out that
I really like.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. I really like Bijan to go there. I think we just talked about their team being complete. Their offensive line is maybe one of the best in football. They just signed Jalen Hurts to a huge extension after he played phenomenal in the Super Bowl. Just about as good as you can do and not win. I think it's either him or Tom Brady as the best QB
Tom
performance.
Brady performance against the Eagles was also sick.
It was sick. I think Hurts played better than him, though, personally. I think Jalen Hurts, he played like a perfect game, literally. It was just the defense that let him down because you're facing Patrick Mahomes. But and then the defense, they did lose some pieces, but their defense was so good last year, I think they can afford a little bit. If they get Bijan Robinson, he can slip right into that offense. He is the perfect guy for that offense. The offensive line can just go to work in the trenches, and Robinson can go to work in the trenches, and it's just going to be a perfect combination. You cannot. I mean, if you're Bijan Robinson, that's where you want to go. You are praying that you get drafted there.
Oh yeah,
that's
and you're getting paid 10th overall draft money. That's huge if you're a running back.
Yeah,
usually you don't make that kind of money until your second contract if you're lucky enough to get a second contract as a running back in the NFL. And that means you're really damn good because that means a team is taking a chance on you as an NFL running back, giving you a second contract somewhere. He's going to be getting first-round top 10 pick money if the Eagles take him at number 10. Right out the gate, which is huge for an NFL player's career. Another team to look at is the Titans, who just announced today that they're selling Ryan Tannehill. So if you want him, come and get him. I don't know if anybody really wants Ryan Tannehill. I think like they're starting from the bottom.
If the Colts weren't going to draft a QB and they weren't in the same division, I think the Colts would jump on that opportunity. But I don't know, maybe a team like the Raiders, they're kind of looking for a QB. They might be interested in Ryan Tannehill. That was the first thought for me anyway, was the Raiders. Maybe even the Ravens if they don't get to keep Lamar. But I think they'd probably rather just roll with Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley over Ryan Tannehill. But if you ask me personally, but I don't know what's going on with the Titans right now. They kind of are just tanking. They just like cut all their veteran good players. They're shopping Derrick Henry. They're shopping Ryan Tannehill. I really don't know what they do with this pick, to be honest. I have no idea because they have so many team needs right now that I could see them taking almost anyone. I could even see them trading down and just stacking up for next year in the draft.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a wild card pick for me.
Yeah, I don't know. They might be like, shit, we're so far out of it. You're right. Like, let's start tanking for next year. Let's start tanking for next year's draft during the draft. So, yeah. And then another team that is interesting to me in this draft is the Raiders. because they have the number 7 pick. Multiple mock drafts have them taking the best offensive lineman, in my opinion, on the board, Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State, which is definitely a good get. But I also, who is going to be slinging the rock for the Raiders next year? So that's another thing. Like, remember they used to be like projected to take a quarterback in this draft. In fact, they were one of the big players that looked like we're going to trade up in this draft for like a C.J. Stroud or a Bryce Young, which would look sick in black and silver for the Raiders. But yeah, I have no idea who's even going to be slinging the rock for the Raiders next year. I guess they're going to ride with their backup quarterback that they had play in the playoffs last year, unless – did the Raiders get a quarterback? Let's figure it out. Did the Raiders – oh, yeah, they did.
The Raiders have a quarterback?
Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo. I was blanking, so I was just reiterating now. I was like, when did the Raiders drafting a quarterback draft talk stop? Because remember, though, we looked at them as big players for like Will Levis, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, like a few months ago, and how sick those colors would be on those guys. And then it was just like, oh yeah, I was just blanking on who they got. They got Jimmy G, so that's why they're probably going to take somebody like Paris Johnson, the best offensive lineman, or Peter Skoronski, whoever. So yeah, and
it's Northwestern.
Yes, he is the Northwestern guy. Okay. Also, been talking about this a lot. It looks like this might be the year where everybody and their brother has the Packers taking a skill position wide receiver in the first round.
Never happens.
Which has also not happened since, well, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Rodgers.
I wasn't a fan of the only offensive player. So, yeah, before Rodgers got
the only offensive player that we have taken in the first round and since Rodgers is Jordan Love. He's the only offensive first-round player that we've taken. It's always been defense, and about half of them hit and about half of them don't. So, but yeah, this does seem to be the year that's the consensus, which would be just kind of a slap in the face to Rodgers. Like, oh, the instant we trade you, we're going to start adding offensive skill positions. So,
yeah,
that would be like a reverse troll for Rodgers.
Yeah. Looks like the Commanders sticking with Sammy Howell. A lot of drafts actually just have them taking cornerbacks, whether that's Deontay Banks or Joey Porter Jr., who I kind of wanted the Steelers to take just because that'd be sick. But I'm also fine if the Steelers get like Jordan Addison. Unless there is one of the big offensive linemen on the board. If Broderick Jones is on the board from Georgia, if Skoronski is on the board still, or if somehow Paris Johnson is still on the board, I hope the Steelers take one of them. If not, take Joey Porter Jr. or Jordan Addison, because it'd be fun as hell. And if you're wondering why Jordan Addison would be fun for the Steelers, he played for Pitt with Pitt Pickett before he went to USC for a year to play with Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams. So, yeah. That's
that would be fun.
That's draft talk.
Yeah, I guess
what
some other teams
have?
that I kind of do want to. You mentioned the Eagles having the 10th pick while going to the Super Bowl. The Seahawks made the playoffs last year, and they have the 5th pick. Mm-hmm. So it's almost just as impressive. Not quite, but it's pretty much up there in the same range. They just extended Geno Smith for another 3 years, so that's kind of cool for Geno and the Seahawks. I don't know what they're going to do with this pick. This is a big mystery to me as well. Like, outside of the top 2 picks, I really think we're in for one of the best drafts ever. Like, it's just last year it was really good because we didn't really know, there wasn't a lot of picks set in stone. whereas in previous years there was. This year it's kind of the same way. Like, we know the Panthers are taking a QB. We probably assume that it's Bryce Young, but there's the possibility that it could be someone else. And then after that, it just gets wild. Like, no one knows. No one knows anything. So it's very interesting. The Lions will be interesting because they are very much a contending team next year. I think a lot of people are going to pick them to win the North. They are on the up and up. Jared Goff is all of a sudden turned into an elite QB in the eyes of everyone. Like, he kind of was the last few years, but like this year people kind of started to recognize it. They really don't have a lot of holes on their team. Obviously, they probably have a hole at wide receiver now that, their entire team got suspended for betting, but they have Amon-Ra, but that's about it. So you might see them trade down and take a receiver, but as far as that, I think that's about it. Another note is that there is only 31 picks in the draft this year since Miami got voided because they did something illegally. Maybe was it tampering with Brady? Was that what it was? Why did they get their first round pick removed?
Oh, does this go back to Brian Flores?
I have no idea. It has something to do with their owner. Their owner did something bad, and so they punished the franchise, which it really, if you ask me, it's just Frank the Tank curse. Just anything that will go wrong.
Was this for telling Brian Flores to lose games on purpose?
Maybe. Like I said, I don't remember. That's why I was asking you.
That's why me and Luke have this grand idea of recording the draft show, in January, because we will have our college football knowledge up to par and stuff like this that took place months and months ago, we will have fresh in our minds. So, maybe we'll
and also like
next year.
It'll be our own takes, like truly our own takes. Mm-hmm. Whereas now we're kind of just looking at big boards and go, which I guess that's kind of what teams do. Realistically, they just look at the big board and they're like, oh yeah, remember that guy from the combine? But, yeah. So the draft will be about 10 minutes shorter this year since there's one less pick. But just it seems to me like it gets longer every year. Like I feel like 5 years ago we could get through 10 picks in 45 minutes, and now it takes like an hour and a half to get through the first 10 picks. Yeah. So it just seems to be getting longer and longer every year, which that's kind of the NFL specialty. Like anything that's not a game, they're going to draw it out. So that's about all the draft talk as far as team-wise. Now, there are some players that I do want to talk about individually before we get out of here. Anthony Richardson. There's some talk that he might go number one. There's some talk that he might go top 5. Where do you think he goes, and do you think it will be a hit if he goes there?
Well, if we do the Cam Graydon scheme here, SEC experience, check. Eye test doesn't really check the box, Luke. Anthony Richardson checked the box for the eye test after week 1 against Utah, and after that, didn't really check a whole lot of boxes. His stats are pretty bad, pretty Brady Cook-like stats, actually. They're pretty similar. And I've been calling for Brady Cook's ginger chaminade fade ass to be, replaced a long time ago. But torn labrum.
And he was injured. He's Brady Cook and he's injured.
Exactly. That's a great point. Yeah. Which actually is a counter to my point of having Brady Cook taken out because he played with the torn labrum and it wasn't really his fault that drink played him. So I think I really want Anthony Richardson to be good because it will be sick because he's just that good of an athlete. And for that, I actually think just off of pure athleticism, and he has the quarterback traits, I think he will be good, and I actually think the Colts are going to take him. So if I could give my own mock top 5, I would go Panthers, Bryce Young. Houston Texans, C.J. Stroud. Arizona Cardinals, Jalen Carter, I guess. That's with no trade. Indianapolis Colts, Anthony Richardson. Seattle Seahawks, Tyree Wilson or Will Anderson. I don't really know who they're going to go with.
You think that the Colts would take AR-15 over Will Levis?
I do. I think at this point in the draft process. I don't know what switched, but there was just a big switch that people think.
I don't think so, because the Colts have been taking chances on QBs for the last 4 years. Now, granted, anytime you draft a QB, you're taking a chance. Huh?
Not really taking much of a chance, though. Everybody they got over the last 4 years or so were proven winners at other places, actually, believe it or not. Carson Wentz, 1 MVP vote. Keep that in mind. And he was a big part of that Super Bowl run. He just didn't play in the playoffs. He was on pace to win MVP, believe it or not. And then they also got
hold on,
Rivers.
I have a counterpoint. Do you think maybe that Super Bowl run, he was a system QB because his backup immediately went in and won the Super Bowl? Do you think there's a possibility that he might have just been in a great system?
No, I actually think that Carson Wentz was good for a few years. And I also think that Nick Foles was honestly just pretty good as well, because Nick Foles was honestly pretty good in the playoffs the following year as well. And then after that, obviously he was
done. It's the same system. Frank hadn't left yet.
Before, Nick Foles had multiple decent years before this whole Carson Wentz thing. So it's not like he was a bad quarterback before that. But yeah, back to the Colts. So they took a chance on Carson Wentz, if you want to call it that, and they also got Phillip Rivers along the way. Matt Ryan, another proven winner. Obviously, that flopped big time. Jacoby Brissett as well in there as well. But they really haven't gone with an outlandish quarterback landing. And I think this might be it. I think they're going to draft Anthony Richardson.
I don't know. I disagree with that. I think Phillip Rivers, you could say, was a low downside, high upside situation because he was a borderline Hall of Fame guy that was still playing well. Carson Wentz he just got benched by the Eagles. The Eagles were literally like pushing him out of town. So that was like a huge question mark. I think the Colts kind of hoped that he would do well, but it was still a question mark. And last year with Matt Ryan, he was slowly regressing like over time. Now, granted, I don't think anyone saw what happened last year, but that was also a risk. I remember saying I liked it at the time because it was only a third-round pick they gave up for him, but that was definitely a risk. And Anthony Richardson would be a huge risk, a high upside, but low downside. I think if you take a guy like Stroud or Young, definitely that's a solid pick. But I think even Will Levis would be less of a risk because you know what you're getting. With Anthony Richardson, yeah, he has the physical attributes. He's a great athlete, and he has a lot of potential, but he hasn't ever put it together. Ever. It's not like one of those guys that was good his first 2 years and then maybe had a little bit of a rough junior, like Tua Tagovailoa. Really good his freshman and sophomore year. Now, he didn't have injuries his junior year, but he struggled a little bit. This guy has literally never shown it. He's had, one good game last year against Utah?
Utah game.
Yeah, you know who put up more points against Utah the year before? C.J. Stroud. With half of his players out because it was a bowl game.
You're missing it. You're missing the point here. My top 5 mock draft, I had the Texans taking C.J. Stroud at number 2. So C.J. Stroud's off the board in this case. I didn't say take Anthony Richardson over C.J. Stroud. I'm just saying if he's gone, I think they're taking Anthony Richardson over Will Levis. Will Levis, to me, looks like the perfect Tennessee Titan. White.
That's what I was thinking.
White,
yes.
white, and has big arms, white, played at Kentucky. Colors kind of translate. Tennessee fans, some of them are Kentucky fans. It's just an easy transition. So I think that's where Will Levis goes if somebody takes a quarterback, if Tannehill hasn't been shipped out of town yet. I mean, man, how about that? What's his nuts over in Tennessee, the backup? I'm blanking on his name. Kid from Liberty.
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis, yeah. I mean, that was a tough scene, what he did last year. I mean, they went to Joshua Dobbs off the street to start the playoff game, air quotes, over Malik Willis. I mean, and that was just awful. So they're definitely – the Malik Willis project, I think, is already over. It's quite sad.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think the kind of alluding to what you were just saying, I don't think the Titans want to go with as much of a project or kind of an outlandish pick like Anthony Richardson because they tried that last year with Malik Willis a little bit, and it just was a big flop. So I think they're, turning back the page, and they're just, let's just go with the big white quarterback, prototypical white quarterback. Let's just go with him instead.
So you think Tennessee's taking a QB?
I do. I do think Tennessee's taking a QB. Okay. I think they're restarting. And I think if they take Will Levis, I don't know if he's going to play down next year. I think they might slot him as like third string. And it's just going to be like one of those situations where you're just like, what are the Titans doing? And it's not even a chess versus checkers type of situation. They just don't know what they're doing either. They're just gonna. Like
I disagree with that.
I think they're kind of just tanking for next year. And if you're gonna do that, you might want to wait on the even better white quarterback, Drake May.
Okay,
that's a fact.
I think they do know what they're doing. Mike Vrabel is a very intelligent football mind,
but he's not the GM.
I think they just let their GM go. No, he's not the GM, but they did just get a new one, so I have a feeling that they're kind of like on the same page a little bit, because I have a feeling Mike Vrabel was probably a huge part of the hiring process for the GM. Which, honestly, Mike Vrabel is one of those guys I could see taking on like the Bill Belichick role and just doing coaching and the GM, because he's just that smart of a guy. And then one more thing we got to talk about here before we get out of here. I guess we could talk about Packers, what wide receiver they're going to take, but that would just be a pointless conversation because it's either Jackson Smith-Njigba or no one, probably. Lamar Jackson.
Oh, no, your favorite Florida State Seminole. They might take your favorite Florida State Seminole. I've seen a lot of that recently.
Oh, Zay Flowers?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like that because I don't even know who he is. I didn't even know the college he went to. I would hate that if we took him with the 13th pick. Although it would be very ironic and kind of my punishment. So
it would be poetic, yes.
It would be poetic. Lamar Jackson. The Aaron Rodgers situation got resolved. Ian Rappaport has said on multiple occasions, Aaron Rodgers is the first QB domino to fall. Nothing is happening in the QB market until Aaron Rodgers goes. He went today. When does Lamar Jackson go, or does he even go at all?
I think it's after. I think it's after the draft concludes that domino is going to fall next. I think it actually kind of helps the Ravens because if they wait till after, because they want Lamar, Luke. They may not want to give him $250 guaranteed, but they still want Lamar, obviously. He's an MVP. So if they allow the dominoes to fall with the draft, that takes a whole bunch of teams off the board in terms of wanting a quarterback for next year because they've got new guys to, put on a pedestal and try and train them up to be their quarterback of the future instead of just targeting Lamar. I think that's going to help him a little bit. It's going to hurt Lamar because a little bit less availability in terms of teams searching out for a quarterback. But so I think that's going to happen after the draft. How soon? I really don't know. And it's going to suck if Lamar is healthy and doesn't have a contract done by, times the games start, and we're stuck watching Tyler Huntley. That's going to suck a little bit. And that's the worst part about the NFL is guys, I know the players got to do what they got to do, but it sucks when Lamar Jackson, is in like a hoodie and street clothes, perfectly fine, not playing with his team, probably watching the game from his couch, because he's so pissed at the organization, not even going to be at the games.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, so yeah, it's tough. I don't know when after the draft, but after the draft, I believe that domino is going to fall. Now, if something crazy happens while we're drafting on Thursday night, that would be epic. Just give us all the chaos for Thursday night.
If Lamar Jackson gets traded during the draft, I think that would be the greatest, probably the best draft trade ever. I think the Eagles are in consideration. And when they got A.J. Brown last year during the draft, that was a huge one. If Lamar Jackson gets traded to a team during the draft, can you imagine the Colts trading the number 4 pick for Lamar Jackson? That would be probably the best, biggest draft trade ever.
And then they take Anthony Richardson. Imagine that.
No,
they take Anthony Richardson. That would be insane. Just back-to-back super athletes at quarterback for the Ravens.
I could actually totally see that too.
That's pretty sweet, isn't it? And he looked good.
I personally think that Lamar's just going to stay with the Ravens, mostly because I can't see him in any other uniform. Even the uni swaps that I keep seeing, it doesn't look good. He's just meant to be in that purple. I think that the Ravens, they're going to fold. I think they're going to give him what he wants. I think they're probably going to offer him the Jalen Hurts money. They saw the Jalen Hurts contract, and I think they're probably going to be like, oh, we could probably do that. And here, Lamar, do you want to be tied with the highest paid QB of all time? Here, take our contract. I think they're willing. I think they're going to.
Which he's going to say, yeah.
Do it, but so I don't think anything's going to happen before the draft. Or, I would be shocked to see it happen before the draft or during the draft, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess my final question to you, for the draft is, what type of pizza would Lucas want? Hypothetically on Thursday to end the show.
I am hypothetically. I'm a big pepperoni pizza guy, but I also I like a deluxe, like a Meat Lover's deluxe pizza. So, with the bacon, with the sausage, with the pepperoni,
Canadian bacon.
I like it. So, but I'm a pepperoni guy. If you give me a pepperoni pizza, I will be content. So, hypothetically, if I were to get a pizza, that's what I would choose. So,
all right,
yeah,
that's all right. That's 25% of the pizza's done. There we go.
Perfect.
All right. There we go.
Sweet. So, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. Unless you got anything else, Cam. I'm just going to end it.
No, Laker Cam will be in action. And Luker Lake.
And
no,
what?
What the I messed it up. Laker Luke, not Luker Lake.
Yeah.
There we go. Laker Luke.
Yeah. I like Luker Lake, though. That's kind of sick, too. But
definitely
changes it up a little bit. But, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to NFL Draft. Hopefully you guys have fun watching it on Thursday, and I think we'll be back for another episode on either Friday or Saturday, I think. Don't quote me on that, but just stay tuned for that, and if not, we'll be back next week with the draft recap and another Cardinals corner. I don't know what's going on in this game right now, but yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode 60. Shout out old people.